क़ाला वअलैका सलाम या बिन्ती व या बसअती क़द अज़िनतु लकी फ़दख़लतु तहतल किसाए फ़लम्मा तमन्ना जमीअन तहतल किसाए अख़ज़ा बि रसूलिल्लाहि सल्लल्लाहु बितरफ़िल किसाए फ़अमा बियदिहिल युमना इला समाए फ़क़ाला अल्लाहुम्मा इन्ना हाउलाए अहलु बैती व ख़ास्सती व आम्मती लहमुहुम लमी व दमहुम दमी व युलिमुनी व यहज़ुनुनी मा यहज़ुनुहुम अना हर्बुन लिमन हारबहुम व सिल्मुन लिमन सालमहुम व अदुव्वुन लिमन आदाहुम व मुहिब्बुन लिमन अहब्बहुम इन्नहुम मिन्नी व अना मिनहुम फजल सलवातिका व बरकातिका व रहमतिका व गुफ़रानका व रिज़वानका अलैया व अलैहिम व अज़िब अनहुमुर रिज़्क़ व ताहिरहुम तत्हीरा। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मदिन व आले मुहम्मद। फ़क़ाल अल्लाहु अज़्ज़ा व जल्ला या मलाइकती व या सुक्काना समावाती इन्नी मा ख़लक़्तु समाअम मबनियतन वला अर्दम मदहियतन वला क़मरम मुनीरन वला शम्सन मुज़ियतन वला फ़ल्कन यदूरु वला बहरैन यजरी वला फ़ुल्कन यसरी इल्ला फ़ी महब्बति हाउलाइल ख़म्सतिल लज़ीना हुम तहतल किसाए फ़क़ालल अमीनु जिब्रीलु या रब्बि वामन तहतल किसाए फ़क़ाला अज़्ज़ा व जल्ला हुम अहलु बैतिन नबुव्वति व मादिनुर रिसालति हुम फ़ातिमतु व अबूहा व बालूहा व बनूहा। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मदिन व आले मुहम्मद। फ़क़ाला जिब्रीलु या रब्बि अताज़नु ली अन अहबता इलल अर्दि लियकूना माहुम सादितन फ़क़ाल अल्लाहु नाम क़द अज़िनतु लका फ़हबतल अमीनु जिब्रीलु व क़ाला अस्सलामु अलैका या रसूलल्लाह अल अलीयुल आला यक़रउका सलामा व यख़ुस्सुका बित्तहिय्यति वल इकरामि व यक़ूलु लका व इज़्ज़ती व जलाली इन्नी मा ख़लक़्तु समाअम मबनियतन वला अर्दम मदियतन वला क़मरम मुनीरन वला शम्सन मुज़ियतन वला फ़ल्कन यदूरु वला बहरैन यजरी वला फ़ुल्कन यसरी इल्ला लिअजलिकुम व मुहब्बतिकुम व क़द अज़िना ली अन अदख़ुला मअकुम फ़हल ताज़नु ली या रसूलल्लाह। फ़क़ाला रसूलल्लाह व अलैका सलाम या अमीना वहियल्लाह इन्नहु नाम क़द अज़िनतु लका फ़दख़ला जिब्रीलु मअना तहतल किसाए फ़क़ाला ले अबी इन्नल्लाह क़द औहा इलैकुम यक़ूलु इन्नमा युरीदुल्लाहु लियुज़हिबा अन्कुमुर रिज्सा अहलल बैति व यतहहिरकुम तत्हीरा। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद। फ़क़ाला अलीयुन ले अबी या रसूलल्लाह अख़बिरनी मा लिजुलूसिना हाज़ा तहतल किसाए मिनल फ़ज़्लि इंदल्लाह। फ़क़ाल अन्नबिय्यु वल्लज़ी बअसनी बिलहक़्क़ि नबिय्युन वस्तफ़ानी बिरिसालति नजिय्यन मा ज़ुकिरा ख़बरुना हाज़ा फ़ी महफ़िलिन मिन महाफ़िलि अहलिल अर्दि व फ़ीहि जम्उन मिन शिअतिना व मुहिब्बिना इल्ला व नज़लत अलैहिमुर रहमा व हफ़्फ़त बिहिमुल मलाइकतु वस्तग़फ़रत लहुम इला अन यतफ़र्रक़ू। फ़क़ाला अलीयुन इज़न वल्लाहि फ़ुज़ना व फ़ाज़ा शिअतुना व रब्बिल काबा। फ़क़ाल नबिय्यु सानियन या अलीयुन वल्लज़ी बअसनी बिलहक़्क़ि नबिय्युन वस्तफ़ानी बिरिसालति नजिय्यन मा ज़ुकिरा ख़बरुना हाज़ा फ़ी महफ़िलिन मिन महाफ़िलि अहलिल अर्दि फ़फ़ीहि जम्उन मिन शिअतिना व मुहिब्बिना व फ़ीहिम महमूमुन इल्ला व फ़रजल्लाहु हम्मा वला मग़मूमुन इल्ला व कशफ़ल्लाहु गम्मा वला तालिबुन हाजतिन इल्ला व क़ज़ल्लाहु हाजता। फ़क़ाला अलीयुन इज़न वल्लाहि फ़ुज़ना व सुइदना व कज़ालिका शिअतुना फ़ाज़ू व सुइदु फ़िद दुनिया वल आख़िरति व रब्बिल काबा। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद। मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम। मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम।
आ गया देखिए मंजिल मेरी हम शीर बहन, मेरी माँ जाई मेरी ज़ैनब दिलगीर बहन, आ गया देखिए मंजिल मेरी हम शीर बहन। पूछो ना हमको ये जंगल ये ज़मीन कैसी है, पूछो ना हमको ये जंगल ये ज़मीन कैसी है, कहते हैं कर वो बला की इसे जागीर बहन, नहर को देख के आंसू जो तेरे बहते हैं, नहर को देख के आंसू जो तेरे बहते हैं, प्यासा बच्चा मेरा मर जाएगा बेनीर बहन, दिल जो घबराता है जंगल की हवा से तेरा, दिल जो घबराता है जंगल की हवा से तेरा, इसी पुरदर्द ज़मीं की यही तासीर बहन, आ गया देखिए मंजिल मेरी हम शीर बहन, मेरी माँ जाई मेरी ज़ैनब दिलगीर बहन, क्या कबाले में लिखूं नाम अली अकबर का, क्या कबाले में लिखूं नाम अली अकबर का, कब्र की पाए जगह है यही तदबीर बहन, दिल के टुकड़े मेरा होगा शिकस्ता बाजू, दिल के टुकड़े मेरा होगा शिकस्ता बाजू, जख्मी दिल किसको बताएगा ये शबीर बहन, छलनी हो जाएगा दागों से जिगर जब मेरा, छलनी हो जाएगा दागों से जिगर मेरा, तब गला मेरा भी कट जाएगा हम शीर बहन, आ गया देखिए मंजिल मेरी हम शीर बहन, मेरी जाए मेरी ज़ैनब दिलगीर बहन। मोहम्मद वाली
मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु सरबुलंदी की रिवायत सर कटाने से चली, सरबुलंदी की रिवायत सर कटाने से चली, नब्ज़ ईमान तेरी नब्ज़ें डूब जाने से चली, नब्ज़ ईमान तेरी नब्ज़ें डूब जाने से चली, घर से तुझको करबला की सिमत जाता देख कर, घर से तुझको करबला की सिमत जाता देख कर, अब्र उठा सहरा से बिजली आशियाने से चली, अब्र उठा सहरा से बिजली आशियाने से चली, सरबुलंदी की रिवायत सर कटाने से चली, आने वाला लम्हा लम्हा तेरी बैअत कर चुका, आने वाला लम्हा लम्हा तेरी बैअत कर चुका, बात तेरी फिर सरे नौ हर जमाने से चली, सरबुलंदी की रिवायत सर कटाने से चली, तूने माने ही बदल डाले शिकस्तो फतह के, तूने माने ही बदल डाले शिकस्तो फतह के, रीत ये तुझसे चली तेरे घराने से चली, रीत ये तुझसे चली तेरे घराने से चली, सरबुलंदी की रिवायत सर कटाने से चली, सलवार मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलवार
सलवार मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद। प्यासा रहा जाने नबी ऐ वाय रे चलती रही मौजें तेरी, ऐ वाए नहरे अलकमा, वो खुश्क लब सूखा गला, शेरे खुदा की आल का, वो तेरे होठों पे तरी, ऐ वाए नहरे अलकमा, तूफान उठाना था तुझे या सूख जाना था तुझे, कुछ तूने खिदमत ही न की, ऐ वाए नहरे अलकमा, एक मश्क पानी के लिए अब्बास के शाने कटे, नदी लहू की बह गई, ऐ वाए नहरे अलकमा, डूबे लहू में अब कलम, क्या क्या गजालाने हरम, देखी ये कश्ती डूबती, ऐ वाए नहरे अलकमा, एक चादरे आबे रवा, ओढ़े हुए तू नौहा, ज़ैनब की ये बेचारगी, ऐ वाए नहरे अलकमा, कब्जे में तेरे आब हो और प्यास से बेताब हो, शह के चमन की हर कली, ऐ वाए नहरे अलकमा, मश्के सकीना बह गई, मुंह देखते सब रह गए, तू और तेरी दलिया दिली, ऐ वाए नहरे अलकमा, ये कौन सा दस्तूर था, मेहमान कितना दूर था, क्या पाँव में जंजीर थी, ऐ वाए नहरे अलकमा, खेमा रहे शबीर का, यूं धूप में जलता हुआ, साहिल पे हो फौज शकी, ऐ वाए नहरे अलकमा, हसरत की एक तफसीर थी, वो तेरे दिल पे तीर थी, जो मौज थी ऐसी उठी, ऐ वाए नहरे अलकमा, आता है उसको याद जब वो कारवान तश्न लब, है नज्म का नौहा यही, ऐ वाए नहरे अलकमा, सल्लल्लाहु मोहम्मद
May Ala Mehdi Ali Sahab to come on the member for the majlis. So Muhammad wa ala Muhammad salwa. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wajjil faraj. Muhammad wa ala Muhammad sallallahu Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Fatiha.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يعد حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بعد الحمم ولا يناله غوث الفتن الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نات موجود ولا وقت معدود ولا عجل ممدود فدر الخلائق بقدرته ونشر الرياح برحمته اللهم احفظ صلة صلواتك وسلامة تسليماتك على أفضل التعينات المفاضة من العماء رباني وآخر التنزلات المضافة إلى نوع الإنسان كان الله ولم يكن معه شيء ثاني محصي لعوالم حضرات الخاص بوجوده وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام المبين الرسول النبي المكي المدني القرشي التهامي صاحب لواء الحمد ومقام المحمود أبي القاسم محمد الحبيب وعلى أخيه وابن عمه وخليفته من بعده وقائد الغر المحجلين يعصوب الدين إمام المتقين أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ابنته الطاهرة الحوراء الإنسية الراضية المرضية الشفية يوم الجزاء فاطمة الزهراء سلام الله عليها وعلى سبتي الرحمة وسيدا شباب أهل الجنة الحسن والحسين اللهم صل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد وحسن بن علي وحجة القائم المنتظر المهدي حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك اللهم سهل منهجهم وعجل في فرجهم وجعلنا من محبيهم ومواليهم وشيعتهم ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا استجيبوا لله ولرسوله إذا دعاكم لما يحييكم واعلموا أن الله يحول بين المرء وقلبه وأنه إليه تحشرون صدق الله العلي العظيم صدق I begin in the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. I invite myself first, then all of you, my dear brothers and sisters, to thank Allah for the blessing that He has granted us by giving us tawfiq and inspiration to come together to reflect upon the greatest sacrifice, Zibul Azim, as Quran talks about, so that we can transform and reform ourselves as Imam Hussein himself had declared when he left Medina that my movement comprises of Islah, reforms for my ummah. My movement is not for oppression, my movement is not for power and control. Innama, Imam says, Innama talabu li islah fi ummati jaddi. And the Imam declared it very, very clearly that my movement is only innama kharajtu li talabi islah fi ummati jaddi. That I have established this movement for islah, for reform, for transformation of the ummah of my grandfather. And how will it come about? Imam says that Uridu an a'mura bil ma'ruf wa anha anil munkar. I want to do amr bil ma'ruf and nahi anil munkar. I want people to be invited towards good, and I want to advise people to refrain from what is bad. And then وَأَسِيرُ بَسِيرَةِ جَدِّي وَسِيرَةِ أَبِي عَلِي ibn Abi Talib. And then I want to walk on the footsteps of my grandfather and my father. If you look at this wasiyah of Imam Hussein to Muhammad Hanafiya, this movement of Imam Hussein, this qiyam of Imam Hussein was to reform the ummah of Rasulullah, to bring back life into the souls of people, to bring back the soul of Islam back. Islam which was dying, Imam wanted to revive it back. Now let me connect you with the words of Holy Quran. I had the honor of reciting from Surah Baqarah verse 186, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Surah Anfal, verse 24, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. O those of you who are claiming themselves to be those who possess Iman, those who are believers. Allah is addressing believers, Sahibane Iman. Allah is not calling upon Ya ayyuhan nas. Allah is saying, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. O those of you who have professed Iman and have accepted Iman, Istajibu lillahi wa li rasulih. Answer Allah and the apostle iza da'akum, when they call you, when they summon you, lima yuhyikum, so that which may give you life. Lima yuhyikum. So when we respond to the call of Allah and His Messenger, that response, Quran is saying, is such that it will revive you and bring you back to life. Are we dead that Allah is calling upon believers to bring us back to life? Allah is addressing believers. Allah is addressing and calling upon those who possess Iman and saying, Istajibu lillah wa li rasulih. Respond to the call of Allah and His Prophet. Meaning that there are people who can hear and who can listen, who can see, and who can respond, but they are not responding. And Allah is saying, if you respond to the call of Allah and His Prophet, what would be the iza da'akum, when they call you, when they summon you to that which will give you life, it is going to be a source of attaining life. So my dear brothers and sisters, when the Prophet of Allah calls upon believers and they respond to the call of the Prophet, it gives them life. Which life? Which life are we referring to? A life of this world? When we see Quran itself does not talk good in those terms of the life of this world. اعلموا أنما الحياة الدنيا لعب ولهو وزينة وتفاخر بينكم وتكاثر في الأموال والأولاد. Beware, be it known to you, the life of this world is nothing but just play and diversion. لهو ولعب وتفاخر وزينة وتفاخر, and it is only glamour. The life of this world is glittering glamour and a source of mutual glory and pride. Tafakur and takathur. With kasra, with excessive possessions, it only becomes a source of pride and arrogance. Tafakur bainakum. So I am doing faqr with you. Bainakum. It is between us. That's why you find, especially in this country, nobody cares when you are a millionaire or a billionaire or whatever you have. But the moment we come along with our own, people of our own culture, people of our own language, suddenly we start finding people are doing this, comparisons, driving those comparisons. I have this much and you have that much. If not, they look upon you in such a way that they would make you feel like you are inferior or they are superior. This is tafakur bainakum, between each other. This is the life of this world. This is how Quran is describing the life of this world. Is Allah and His Prophet calling upon this life, a life like this? Of course not. Allah is not calling upon this life. Allah is calling upon a life which is far more superior. As Allah says, وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا لَعِبٌ وَلَحْوٌ. In another verse Allah says that the life of this world is nothing but play and diversion. وَلَلدَّارُ الْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لِلَّذِينَ يَتَّقُونَ. But the abode of afterlife is better for those who observe, those who exercise taqwa, those who exercise taqwa, those who exercise godliness, those whose senses always can perceive and be vigilant of presence of Allah around them. Taqwa is to be self-aware of Allah's presence even when there is no one. That is the life that the Prophet is going to grant us. My dear brothers and sisters, would that life curtail and stop? Would that call of Allah and His Prophet stop after the Holy Prophet? Is it possible that only people of that time had this opportunity where the Prophet would call upon them and they would respond to the call and they would attain this life, and people after him would not? Obviously not. That's why there is this chain of guidance that we find. But even while this was being done, we find Islam was being overpowered and overtaken and was being completely dominated by kufr and nifaq. Kufr cannot come out in open and say kufr, because then it becomes black and white. So those who were kuffar turned into munafiqeen. They turned into hypocrites, who in their outward self would call themselves Muslims, but they had hatred for Islam and for Rasulullah and for the whole clan that supported Rasulullah so that he could establish the true faith, and that is Bani Hashim. And that's why we find that those entered into the ranks and files of Muslims, calling themselves Muslims, but they were kuffar. Even if you look at Bani Umayyah, from their inception, their Islam is questionable. Whether they even became Muslim or not is questionable. This is, somebody who is not even a follower of Ahlul Bayt directly as declares and gives proofs from the ahadith of the Holy Prophet. There is a scholar in Saudi Arabia. He's probably in jail, and I don't know if he's even alive right now. Sheikh Hassan Farhan al-Maliki. Sheikh Hassan Farhan discusses this in detail, whether Bani Umayyah were even, Muslims in the first place. Because they were freed slaves of Rasulullah, and the Prophet of Allah had only freed them. Now with their actions they have to prove that they were Muslims. If their actions are contrary, then obviously you cannot count them as Muslims. As the Prophet of Allah on the day of the victory of Mecca said, "Izhabu antumul tulaqa." Go, I let you go, you are tulaqa. I have released you. I could have made you my slaves, but I have freed you. That is how the grandfather of Yazid was released from Rasulullah. That's why we see Hazrat Zainab in the court of Yazid talks about how does she address. While Yazid thinking, I have the whole court in front of me supporting, and the whole, Sham, the whole Syria is celebrating, and Hazrat Zainab says, Yabnat Tulaqa, O son of the freed slave. This is how Hazrat Zainab addresses Allah. So obviously, Kufr and Nifaq did not wanted this life, the life that Allah and His Messenger wanted to give to believers, to mu'mineen. Therefore, they had completely deceived and penetrated, infiltrated the ranks of Muslims, grabbed power by force, by deception, and now with their deception they were deceiving Muslimin. That is why there was this whole industry of fake ahadith that was thriving at that time, and people like Ka'b al-Ahbar, who was a Jewish rabbi, and when he was excommunicated from his community and he had no representation anywhere, he came into the fold of Islam and became one of the biggest narrators. And his ahadith are called Israeliyat. These are the ahadith which were distortions and manufactured ahadith that Ka'b al-Ahbar introduced into the Muslim world, claiming that he read things in the books of the past prophets, because he did not have any background. And he was not even Muslim when the Prophet of Allah was alive. He did not become Muslim. He became Muslim at the time of second Khalifa, and he became one of the most favorite ones when Bani Umayyah came into power. So obviously when Imam Hussein sees that neither confrontation with Munafiqeen was enough, in fact another group emerged when Amirul Mu'mineen was Khalifa, and he was fighting another group of Khawarij emerged. These, in the words of ulama, even Mawla Amirul Mu'mineen says, some of them sincerely believed what they believed. They were not like Bani Umayyah. Bani Umayyah were the ones who did not have Iman in their hearts, and they were playing. These people were, intellectually inferior, or how Shaheed Mutahari says, that how the Prophet of Allah had the opportunity to do the tarbiyah and to train people for 10 years before they even went to Habasha, to Ethiopia, and how they presented themselves and how they presented Islam, one of them being the brother of Amir al-Mu'mineen. It was all because the Prophet of Allah had trained them. But these were the people who became Khawarij, who came in a quick time frame, in a very short window in which Islam was prevailing, and they did not find somebody who could guide them. And obviously, when the one who was appointed by Rasulullah was sidelined, who would be there to guide? The criteria of Islam to usher peace was not the criteria of guidance. It was the criteria of territory. Islam was expanding in territory, but shrinking in guidance. And all those who were opportunists, they came, they thought there is a ride that they can take and they can enjoy the ride. That's why, my dear brothers and sisters, these people who came into the fold of Islam as Khawarij were sincere in their belief but were misguided. That's why Amir al-Mu'mineen said after Muharram, don't kill them, because the bigger enemy was Bani Umayyah. And that's why you see these people were pushed and mustered into the fold of Bani Umayyah. Even Shimr ibn Zil-Jawshan was the one who was on the side of Imam Ali in the battle of Siffin, and then turned away from Imam Ali and became one of the Khawarij, and then finally became part of Yazid's army. You see these transitions. So the point is, my dear brothers and sisters, that Bani Umayyah never wanted the true Islam to flourish, and it came a point after which Imam Hussein could not hold any longer. As long as the treaty of Imam Hassan lasted, although Amir Sham had trampled the treaty of Imam Hassan under his feet, Imam Hussein honored that treaty. People were inviting Imam Hussein to come for resistance, to stand up against Amir Sham, the father of Yazid, and Imam Hussein declined from accepting that invitation. And Imam Hussein refrained to honor the treaty when the partner in that treaty had already completely, trampled the terms of that treaty. But when Yazid came, but you see the protest of Imam Hussein, we find had already begun from the time of Amir Sham itself. When Amir Sham was notified by one of his very loyal, one of his loyal servants, one of his loyal ones from his family, it was Marwan, we find that Marwan had complained to Amir Sham that Imam Hussein is mustering an army to go against him. He had written a letter, and then Imam Hussein replied to that letter. I don't think I will get time to talk about that letter. Maybe I will talk about it tomorrow. But the point that I'm trying to make, my dear brothers and sisters, it became very, very obvious that Yazid is here to stay, and by hook or by crook, Bani Umayyah wanted to install Yazid, and his father was successful in creating that condition that even those who were called Sahaba, those who were called great companions, even them, I would not like to name some of them, but they conceded and they said, if everybody accepts, we will also accept. The only thorn in the eye of Yazid was Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And that is why Marwan, when he dared to Walid, that, oh Walid, if Hussein does not do the bay'ah right now, kill him right now in the palace itself. This is the seerah of the father of Yazid. Maybe I'll talk about it tomorrow, inshallah. Salawat ala Muhammad wa
Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad wajjil farajah.
Now, the point that I want to call is, when we listen to the call of Allah and His Messenger, that is when we attain life. That is when we can truly be those who possess faith, possess iman, because this verse is talking about it. إِذَا دَعَانِي فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي, and so let them respond to me. I answer the supplicant's call when he calls me, so let them respond to me. And وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي, and let them have faith in me. Quran is saying, Allah is saying, let them have faith in me. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ, so that they may fare rightly. They would be the people who will be called Rajulun Rashid. Yarshudun comes from Rashid, and Rashid is a person of understanding and wisdom. If they want to be someone who, we talk about being smart. And we talk about even, and when we are, I see a lot of young people, when you go and find your first job, and you start trying to save up, whoever you talk to and whoever you meet, they say, don't worry about the short-term investments. Go for a long run. You are young, and if you keep investing in long terms, eventually, whether those stocks are up or down, they will prevail. If you go and select the right companies, even if they are not doing good right now, they will eventually do. Do not go for these short runs that the stock market or other markets have. Go for a long run. So what is it for a long run that would make us succeed in the life of this world is to respond to the call of Allah and His Prophet. If we are doing it, my dear brothers and sisters, then we are looking in long run what is the outcome of our life. And we are not looking to the short life of this dunya when you compare it to the life that Allah has in store for us. The life of this world is very short. In fact, it has been compared, it is as if you are crossing a bridge. And those who cross a bridge, they don't make homes on the bridge. They might stop there briefly, but they would not make homes. Sallallahu Muhammad wa Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.
Now, if we look at, other places also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning Rabbana wa atina ma wa'adtana ala rasulik. O Lord, give us what you have promised us through your apostles. So who do we call out? We respond to the call of Allah and His Prophet. In other words, we are saying, O Lord, give us what you have promised us through your apostles. Ma wa'adtana ala rasulik. Through your prophets. Meaning that there is no direct connection. You have to use the wasila that Allah Himself had prescribed. If we want Allah to hear us, then we need to ask Allah through His Prophet. If we want to respond to the call of Prophet, which leads us by giving us life, and we are responding to Allah, how do we respond to Allah? By responding to the Prophet. And when we call upon Allah, how do we call upon Allah? By calling upon the Prophet, and Allah shall grant what He has promised through the Prophet. So this chain of connection that was established by Allah Himself for His creation so that they are connected to Him was being cut off by Yazid. It was being trampled, it was being disconnected, dismembered, and the Ummah was getting delusional. They did not know where to go, who to seek guidance from. And the situation had become so bad that when Imam Hussein leaves Medina, first of all, the point itself, why did Imam leave Medina? If Imam Hussein was safe in Medina, why would Imam leave Medina? People will say, yes, there were so many companions, Abdullah ibn Abbas was saying, and Muhammad Hanafiya was saying, don't go. But then Imam Hassan, ulama say, Imam Hassan was there in Medina. Imam Ali was amongst his supporters, amongst an army of 40,000 people. And he was not safe. So the Imam made the decision knowing that had he lived in Medina, he would be assassinated. Not only the sanctity of Medina, even the sanctity of the house of Allah was at stake. That is why even Imam could not stay in Mecca. Imam came to Mecca. And when the Imam came to Mecca, Abdullah ibn Zubair had already left. He went from the shortest route in the darkness of the night and started mustering supporters around him. only to find Imam Hussein later arriving. And the moment Imam Hussein arrived, it was a game changer for the people of Mecca. Would they go under the leadership of Abdullah ibn Zubayr or Imam Hussein? Obviously they were coming and surrounding Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Now there were not only Bani Umayyah was an adversary in Mecca, even Abdullah ibn Zubayr became an adversary, because although he was coming and talking to Imam Hussein as if he wanted Imam Hussein to stay, but he wanted as much Imam Hussein to leave Mecca so that he can control the people of Mecca and declare himself to be the Khalifa. And that is why we find in the midst of all this, there was no support, calls of support coming from anywhere except for Kufa. Kufa was the only place from where Imam Hussein was receiving letters. And these letters were for the call of support that the Shia of Ahlul Bayt were calling upon. Nu'man bin Bashir had become weak, and Amir Sham is dead, and the atrocities and the injustices that have been carried out by Bani Umayyah for many, many years had become unbearable to a point where the supporters started writing letters to Imam Hussein. While Imam is in Mecca, he was receiving letters. Now, there was no place for Imam. Imam had clearly declared, even Imam had to turn his Hajj into Umrah and leave Mecca. Why? Because there was information that assassins would come in the form of Hujjaj wearing ihram and come and assassinate Imam Hussein. And the sanctity of Kaaba would be violated. And there would become this precedent where after which this would become a common sight where you cannot even kill an ant or a mosquito in the holy sanctuary. If the grandson of Rasulullah could be killed, anybody could be killed then. That sanctity would have been violated. And therefore Imam Hussein decides to leave. But where should he go? Who is it that is inviting him? Is there anyone who wants him? There was no one except for the people of Kufa. Did Imam not know the nature of the people of Kufa? Of course the Imam knew the nature of the people of Kufa. However, it was the hujjah for the Imam to find a place where there are supporters, and there were thousands of letters that were coming, compared to him being in Mecca itself and being assassinated. And therefore, Imam leaves for this journey that he undertook from Mecca towards Kufa. But even before this could happen, as you all are aware, that the spies of Bani Umayyah, the loyalists of Bani Umayyah, had already informed Yazid that you will lose Kufa because Hussein is bound to come, and there are letters that are being sent, and there is a unanimous support that is seen amongst people. Either you send somebody who could reclaim and control the situation, otherwise Kufa is gone. And when that happens, Yazid appoints Ibn Ziyad Lanatullah alayhi. And if you look at the circumstances how Ibn Ziyad also was known for his tyranny, is also because his father was known for the tyranny. How he had killed 30,000 people of Basra. Who was Ziyad bin Abi, the father of Ibn Ziyad? Ziyad bin Abi was one of the governors of Imam Ali alayhi salam during his time. And then he defected. He was somebody who represented Amirul Mu'mineen. The reason I am bringing Shimr, the reason I am bringing Ziyad bin Abi, my dear brothers and sisters, for us to reflect that Tashayyu the gift that Allah, the greatest gift for which we are going to be accounted on the Day of Judgment, as Imam Sadiq had said on the words of Holy Quran, لَتُسْأَلُنَّ يَوْمَئِذٍ عَنِ النَّعِيمِ, that you shall be accountable and asked for the blessing that have been granted to you is the blessing of the Vilayah of Ahlul Bayt, and we should not let it go off our hands, my dear brothers.
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
We find Ziyad bin Abi and his tyrannical rule after Amirul Mu'mineen and Ibn Ziyad being appointed. The moment he came, how did he come? He did not have the courage to enter Kufa being who he is. And he had to come wearing an amama of Rasulullah, how Rasulullah would look like. Who would wear that other than Imam Hussain alayhi salam? It was only Imam Hussain who would wear. So he came in the disguise of Imam Hussain when he entered Kufa, because he did not have the courage to enter, and people of Kufa were thinking Imam Hussain is coming. Although he had a naqab or a cover over his face, and he removes that cover when he enters the palace. But then he was one of those wicked and cunning governors who knew how to turn the tables around with fake news, with propaganda. The army of Yazid in big numbers had not come with him. He had come with a handful of people. But the moment he came in, first thing he did was he mustered all the tribal leaders, started threatening them. This is the same time when Muslim ibn Aqil is there, because all of this happened because Muslim was sent by Imam Hussain to take the bay'ah, physical support for Ahlul Bayt. And thousands of people, after giving support to Muslim, turned away with mere threats of Ibn Ziyad. Only threats. There was no battle, there was no war. All he did eventually was to get Hani ibn Arwa arrested, and he had beaten Hani such that his nose was broken and it was bleeding. And when the people of Kufa came to know about it, and the tribe of Hani ibn Arwa, who was one of the biggest supporter of Muslim, who was hosting Muslim, when people came to know, they came forward and they protested. However, even then, there were those who were called Darbari Mullahs. There were those ulama, those scholars who were paid by the state and who would speak the language of the state. And there was Shuraih Khazi who comes forward and he says, don't worry, nothing has happened to Hani ibn Arwa. He is just a guest. He is under scrutiny, but let me guarantee you, let me assure you, nothing has happened. And merely by sweet talk of Shuraih Khazi, who was the Khazi, who was the judge, who was the religious authority in Kufa appointed by the state, people turned away and walked away. And you know how Muslim was martyred. While Imam Hussain is still coming, he is still on the way, and he meets Farazda. And Imam Hussain talks to him and he says, tell me, how is the situation in Kufa? And he mentions that Yabna Rasulullah, قُلُوبُهُمْ مَعَكْ وَالسُّيُوفُهُمْ مَعَ بَنِي أُمَيَّةَ. Their hearts are with you, but their swords are with Bani Umayyah. At that point, Imam Hussain declares his very famous saying, Inna nas abidud dunya. Indeed, people are the slaves of this world. Deenuhum lahiqun ala alsinatihim. Their religion is only a function of their speech, their chatter, what they speak. As long as their dunya is safe, they are following their religion. إِذَا مُحِسُّوا بِالْبَلَاءِ قَلَّا دَيَّانُونَ. The moment they are confronted with calamity, with bala, then those who are mutadayyan, those who are strong to uphold their faith, there are only few are left. There are only few. Inna nas abidud dunya. So Imam Hussein is describing the people of Kufa, but it is for all of us. Abidud dunya. We are the slaves of this world. Our religion, our deen, is only function of our words as long as our dunya is safe and is intact. The moment we are shaken a little bit with bala, with calamity, then we find ourselves into a different camp, as the people of Kufa, after doing the bay'ah of Imam Hussein in the hands of Hazrat Muslim, left. But this journey would not conclude, and you know that Ibn Ziyad had sent Hur ibn Yazid Riyahi to contain or to stop Imam Hussein from coming to Kufa, and either receive the bay'ah, or at that point when Hur came, the only condition was that do not let Imam Hussein enter Kufa. Inshallah, I would talk about Hazrat Hur in the coming nights, but I just want to very quickly get to a point where on the second day of Muharram, we find that Imam had arrived to the destination where he was destined to arrive. As the Prophet of Allah had already said, as Hazrat Zahra was told by the Holy Prophet, by the narration of Jibreel, what is the outcome of the son who is going to be born. And Imam Hussein is being deflected and moved away from Kufa until he arrives to this land, where Imam says, فَسَأَلَهُ عَنِ الْعَرْضِ قِيلَ كَرْبَلَا فَقَالَ عَرْضُ كَرْبٍ وَبَلَا. Imam asks, what land is this? What place is this? And they say that this is Karbala. فَقَالَ, Imam says, أَرْضُ كَرْبٍ وَبَلَا. This is the land of Karb. This is the land of fear. This is the land of mourning, and this is the land of distress and calamity. Bala wa kana al-yawm al-thani, and that was the second day, yawm al-thani min al-Muharram. Fakhala, and the Imam at this point says, انزلوا ها هنا محتة ركابنا وسفك دمائنا فنزلوا وأقاموا بها. Imam says, get down from your camels. This is the place where the blood of our children is going to be spilled. This is the place where our children are going to be slaughtered. And at this point, Imam continues and recites the poetry. While listening to the poetry, Ya dahru usfin laka min al-qalil. This poetry talks about death, which is about to come soon. We find Hazrat Zainab becoming very, very distressed and calling upon her brother, Ya Akha, oh my brother, what is going on? What are you talking about? You are talking about death, oh my beloved brother. Mata ummi Fatima wa Ali wa Abi Ali wa Akhi al-Hasan. My father, my mother, my brother has already passed away. You are the only last symbol of the Rasulullah. فَإِنَّ أَهْلَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ يَمُوتُونَ. Imam Hussein is consoling Hazrat Zainab, oh my beloved sister, do not worry, oh my beloved sister. All in the heavens and the earth have to die one day. وَكُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَالَكْ إِلَّا وَجْهَهُ. Recites the verse of Holy Quran that everything, every existence would cease to exist and it is only the face of Allah that is going to sustain and live through it. Abi khayrun minni wa akhi khayrun minni wa likulli muslimin bi Rasulillah uswatun. My father, my brother was higher in station, but they are martyred, so will I. But what needs to remain for a Muslim is the seerah and the path of Rasulullah. अजीजों, हजरत ज़ैनब का गिरिया और बुका आप जानते हैं। सरजमीन करबला पर ज़ैनब ने वो गिरिया किया क्योंकि हुसैन ने बता दिया वो मकाम पर हम पहुंच गए हैं ज़ैनब कि जहां हमारे बच्चों को के गले काटे जाएंगे। अजीजों, लेकिन करबला में हुसैन बनी असद को बुलाते हैं और बनी असद को बुलाकर एक एक से सवाल करते हैं इस जमीन का मालिक कौन है। और एक मर्तबा एक शख्स दावा करता है कि ये हमारी जमीन है, ये बनी असद की जमीन है। इमाम फरमाते हैं कि मैं इस जमीन को खरीदना चाहता हूं, और इमाम जमीन को खरीद लेते हैं। दोबारा बनी असद को ये जमीन हिबा कर देते हैं, तोहफे में दे देते हैं और कहने लगते हैं ऐ बनी असद के जवानों, ऐ बनी असद के मर्दान, मैं तुमसे वो पेशन गोई कर रहा हूं जो आगे के अय्याम में यहां पर हादसा होने वाला है। और वो ये है कि मैं रसूल का नवासा हूं और मुझे यहां पर 3 दिन का भूखा और प्यासा कत्ल कर दिया जाएगा। जब मुझे अशकिया कत्ल कर दे और यहां से चले जाए तो तुमसे गुजारिश ये है कि सूरत सुन्नत नबवी के तहत मुझे दफन कर देना, हमारे शुहदा की लाशों को दफन कर देना, इसलिए कि दुश्मनाने इस्लाम उन्हें बेगौर और कफन छोड़ देंगे। अजीजों, उसके बाद हुसैन को करार नहीं आता, फरमाते हैं कि बनी असद की औरतों को भेजो। बनी असद की औरतें आती हैं, हुसैन कलाम कर रहे हैं, ऐ बनी असद की औरतों, इस दुनिया की जिंदगी से अगर तुम्हारे मर्द इस बात से डर जाए कि दुश्मन ने उन्हें इजाजत ना दी हो कि वो हमारे लाशों को दफन करे, तो तुम आना और हमारे लाशों को दफन कर देना। अजीजों, इसके बाद मौला हुसैन बनी असद के बच्चों को तलब करते हैं, ऐ बनी असद के बच्चों, अगर तुम्हारे वालिदैन हाकिम के डर से हमारे जनाजों को दफन न करे तो तुम खेलते खेलते आना, एक मुश्त खाक हमारे जनाजों पर डाल देना। सयालमुल्लज़ीना ज़लमू अय्यम क़लबी यनक़लिबून इन्ना लिल्लाहि व इन्ना इलैहि राजिऊन। We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, O Allah, by the wasila of the martyrdom of Sayyidul Shuhada, mu'mineen who have come here, O Allah, fulfill their hajat. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to protect life, honor, property and dignity of believers wherever they are. We ask you, Allah, to cure those who are sick in our community. We ask you, Allah, to forgive those who have passed away from our community. We ask you, Allah, to hasten the reappearance of your hujjah and make us such that your hujjah will be pleased with us. Please recite the Surah Fatiha for all of your marhumeen and especially for the marhumeen of the sponsors of tonight's program. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, rabbil alameen, ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, maliki yawmiddin. Bismillah ar-Rahman. Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Hussein. Karbala-e Karbala, Karbala-e Karbala, Karbala-e Karbala, करबला, करबलाए करबला। सुन ज़मीने करबला सुन, शिकवे अहले अज़ा सुन, क्यों बरागर लुट गया करबलाए करबला, करबलाए करबला, करबलाए करबला, करबलाए करबला। अलकमा तेरी ज़मीं पर, शाह का कुंबा वहीं पर, 3 दिन प्यासा रहा करबलाए करबला, करबलाए करबला, करबलाए करबला, करबलाए करबला। है कहाँ लैला का अकबर, है कहाँ बानो का असगर, है कहाँ लैला का अकबर, है कहाँ बानो का असगर, है कहाँ अहले किसा करबलाए करबला, करबलाए करबला, करबलाए करबला, करबलाए करबला। सुन ज़मीने करबला सुन, शिकवे अहले अज़ा सुन, सुन ज़मीने करबला सुन, शिकवे अहले अज़ा सुन, क्यों बरागर लुट गया करबलाए करबला, करबलाए करबला, करबलाए करबला, करबलाए करबला। ओ तेरा मेहमान कहाँ है, बेसरो सामा कहाँ है, वो तेरा मेहमान कहाँ है, बेसरो सामा कहाँ है, हो गया बर्बाद घर करबलाए करबला, करबलाए करबला, करबलाए करबला, करबलाए करबला। है कहाँ ज़ैनब के दिलबर, है कहाँ ज़ैनब की चादर, है कहाँ ज़ैनब के दिलबर, है कहाँ ज़ैनब की चादर, है कहाँ बेअसरा करबलाए करबला, करबलाए करबला, करबलाए करबला, करबलाए करबला। है कहाँ असगर का झूला, है कहाँ फरवा का बेटा, है कहाँ असगर का झूला, है कहाँ फरवा का बेटा, आ रही है ये सदा करबलाए करबला, करबलाए करबला, करबलाए करबला, करबलाए करबला। करबला की खाक उड़ाकर और पुर्ज नौहाए महशर, करबला की खाक उड़ाकर और पुरदर्शाए महशर, आए सिकते मुस्तफा करबलाए करबला, करबलाए करबला,
शाम से
कैसा मुहर्रम आया, करबला वालों पे ये कैसा मुहर्रम आया, करबला वालों पे ये कैसा मुहर्रम आया, करबला वालों पे ये कैसा मुहर्रम आया। टपकता हुआ आवाज का परचम आया, करबला वालों पे ये कैसा मुहर्रम आया, करबला वालों पे ये कैसा मुहर्रम आया। टपकता हुआ आवाज का परचम आया, करबला वालों पे ये कैसा मुहर्रम आया, करबला वालों पे ये कैसा मुहर्रम आया। जैसे जैसे मेरे गाजी का आलम झुकता गया, जैसे जैसे मेरे गाजी का आलम झुकता गया, पुश्त पे हजरत शबीर के भी हम आया। टपकता हुआ आवाज का परचम आया, करबला वालों पे ये कैसा मुहर्रम आया, करबला वालों पे ये कैसा मुहर्रम आया। जैसे जैसे मेरे गाजी का आलम झुकता गया, जैसे जैसे मेरे गाजी का आलम झुकता गया, पुष्प पे हजरत शबीर के भी हम आया। टपकता हुआ आवाज का परचम आया, करबला वालों पे ये कैसा मुहर्रम आया, करबला वालों पे ये कैसा मुहर्रम आया। करबला देख ले इस्लाम बचाने के लिए, करबला देख ले इस्लाम बचाने के लिए, हाथ कुंभे को लिए पार से आदम आया। खून टपकता हुआ आवाज का परचम आया, करबला वालों पे ये कैसा मुहर्रम आया, करबला वालों पे ये कैसा मुहर्रम आया, करबला वालों पे ये कैसा मुहर्रम आया। खून टपकता हुआ आवाज का परचम आया, करबला वालों पे ये कैसा मुहर्रम आया, करबला वालों पे ये कैसा मुहर्रम आया। करबला देख ले इस्लाम बचाने के लिए, करबला देख ले इस्लाम बचाने के लिए, हाथ कुंभे को लिए पार से आदम आया। टपकता हुआ आवाज का परचम आया, करबला वालों पे ये
पिला दो पानी, जालिमो इसको दो बूंद पिला दो पानी। अब लहू पे मेरे बेशीर का है दम आया, खून टपकता हुआ आवाज का परचम आया। करबला वालों पे ये कैसा मुहर्रम आया, करबला वालों पे ये कैसा मुहर्रम आया। खून टपकता हुआ आवाज का परचम आया। करबला वालों पे ये कैसा मुहर्रम आया, करबला वालों पे ये कैसा मुहर्रम आया। सारे मौसम तो गुजर जाएंगे लेकिन आकर, सारे मौसम तो गुजर जाते हैं आकर, लेकिन हमेशा के लिए मौसम मातम आया। खून टपकता हुआ आवाज का परचम आया। करबला वालों पे ये कैसा मुहर्रम आया, करबला वालों पे ये कैसा मुहर्रम आया। जालिमो इसको दो बूंद पिला दो पानी, जालिमो इसको दो बूंद पिला दो पानी। अब लहू पे मेरे बेशीर का है दम आया, टपकता हुआ आवाज का परचम आया। करबला वालों पे ये कैसा मुहर्रम आया, करबला वालों पे ये कैसा मुहर्रम आया। करबला दिया करबला दिया मामा, सब मिलके मामा। करबला दिया मामा है मामा, करबला दिया मामा। पुतरा दिया लाशा के टुकड़े, रैया लब दिया बिच सहरावा। करबला दिया मामा, करबला दिया मामा। पुतरा दिया लाशा के टुकड़े, रैया लब दिया बिच सहरावा। करबला दिया मामा, करबला दिया मामा। सब्र दे मालिक नू सैण लैला आखे, किसने देवे देते मैं सब्र दी सांझ च। अकबर दे सीने चो सांग हटावा। करबला दिया मामा, करबला दिया मामा। पुतरा दिया लाशा के टुकड़े, रैया लब दिया बिच सहरावा। करबला दिया मामा, करबला दिया मामा। अखे माता सिमदी बातें एहसान करी, तेरे तक लड़ता रमी, तेरे टुकड़े मुताबिक बधड़िया ने मेरे वीर हुसैन दिसावा, करबला दिया मावा, करबला दिया पुतला दिया लाशा दे टुकड़े रैया लब दिया विच सहरावा, करबला दिया करबला दिया अखे माँ कासिम दी माते एहसान करी, तेरे तक लड़ता रमी, तेरे टुकड़े मुताबिक बधड़िया ने मेरे वीर हुसैन दिसावा, करबला दिया मावा, करबला दिया मावा। तो कैदी हो के लंघिया मकतल चूं, बहन ज़ैनब ने किता लाशावल मावा, ना देखण किते रुक ना जावण सावा, करबला दिया मावा, करबला दिया पुतरा दिया लाशा दे टुकड़े रैया लब दिया विच सहरावा, करबला दिया करबला दिया जदों कैदी हो के लंघिया मकतल चूं, बहन ज़ैनब ने किता लाशावल मावा, ना देखण किथे रुक ना जावण सावा, करबला दिया मावा, करबला दिया मावा। 14 सदिया होया फातिमा दी नूहा, अल्लाह जल पढ़ दिया सकलैन अजबी तक दिया ने, ओ मां दिया पुत्र दिरावा, करबला दिया मावा, करबला दिया मावा। या हुसैन 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 या हुसैन। वो आबिदे बीमार था, वो आबिदे बीमार था, और शाम का बाजार था, और शाम का बाजार, और मुस्तफा की बेटियां मौला हक इमाम या हसन या हुसैन, मौला हक इमाम या हसन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन। शब्बीर की वो लाडली, शब्बीर की वो लाडली, सीने पे जो शर्ते पली, जिसकी अबावन में जली, मुंह पर तमाचों के निशान, मौला हक इमाम या हसन या हुसैन, मौला हक इमाम या हसन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन। वो असगरे बेशीर था, वो असगरे बेशीर था, और करबला का चादर छिनी खैमे जले अब्बास के परचम तले रो कर कहे ये बीबियां मौला हक इमाम या हसन या हुसैन मौला हक इमाम या हसन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन शाम गरीब आ गई शाम गरीब आ गई आबिद को गैरत आ गई पहले पे ज़ैनब आ गई अब्बास और अकबर कहाँ मौला हक इमाम या हसन या हुसैन मौला हक इमाम या हसन या हुसैन 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 या हुसैन
अस्सलामु अलैका या रसूल अल्लाह अस्सलामु अलैका या हबीब अल्लाह अस्सलामु अलैका या अमीरुल मुमिनीन अस्सलामु अलैकी या फातिमा सय्यदत निसाइल आलमीन अस्सलामु अलैका या अबा अब्दुल्लाह अस्सलामु अलैका या इब्न रसूलिल्लाह अस्सलामु अलैका अबुल फज़ल अब्बास या इब्न अमीरुल मुमिनीन व क़ासिम इब्न हसन व मुस्लिम इब्न अक़ील वहानी इब्न उरवा व हबीब इब्न वज़ाहिर व हुर्र शहीदुर रियाह अस्सलामु अलैकुम जमीअन रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातुहू अस्सलामु अलैका या गरीबल गुरबा अस्सलामु अलैका या मुईनल ज़ुअफ़ा वल फ़ुक़रा अस्सलामु अलैका या सुल्तान या अबुल हसन या अली इब्न मूसा रिज़ा अस्सलामु अलैकुम व रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातुहू अस्सलामु अलैका या साहिबल असर वल ज़मान अलमान 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 खलीफतुर रहमान इमाम अल-इंस वल जान शरीकल कुरआन अजल अल्लाह ताला फरजक व सहल अल्लाह ताला मखरजक व ज़हुरक अस्सलामु अलैकुम जमीअन रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातुहू
अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद व आलि मुहम्मद रहमानिर रहीम अल्लाहुम्मा कुन लिवलियकल हुज्जत इब्निल हसन सलवातुका अलैहि व अला आबाइहि फी हाज़िहि साअह व फी कुल्ली साअह वलिय्यन व हाफ़िज़an व क़ाइदन व नासिरन व दलीलन व ऐना हत्ता तुस्किनहु अर्दक طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات ومن مات على الهدى والإيمان بالخصوص إلى أرواح أموات جماعتنا الحاضرين نهدي للجميع ثواب سورة المباركة الفاتحة تسبقها الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
नारे तकबीर
नारे रिसालत
या रसूल अल्लाह
नारे हैदरी
या अली
यजीदियत
मुर्दाबाद
यजीदियत
मुर्दाबाद
यजीदियत
मुर्दाबाद
लब्बैक या हुसैन
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 मुहम्मद व आलि मुहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु
अल्लाह